The space around the ship Harmony's edge was quiet and empty. Inside the communication room, Yuki sat at her desk looking at the green lights on her screen. She had been doing this job for 3 years now. Most days were boring. She listened to messages from other ships and planets, trade talk, weather reports, nothing exciting. But today was different. A strange sound came through her headphones. It was weak and far away, but it had a pattern. Yuki stopped what she was doing and listened more carefully. The sound came again, and again. "Computer, record this signal," she said quickly. The ship's computer began recording the strange sounds. Yuki played them back several times. There was definitely a pattern there. Someone was trying to talk. "Computer, where is this signal coming from?" "Signal origin is 47 light-years away. Unknown source." Yuki's heart started beating faster. Unknown source meant this was not from any planet or species they knew about. In 3 years of work, she had never heard anything like this. She called Captain Minho right away. He was a tall man with kind eyes who always listened when his crew had something important to say. "What do you have for me, Yuki?" Captain Minho asked as he walked into the communication room. "Sir, I'm getting a signal from somewhere we've never heard from before. It's weak, but it has patterns, mathematical patterns." Captain Minho looked at the screen showing the signal data. "Mathematical patterns means intelligence. Someone is trying to talk to us." Dr. Rena came into the room behind the captain. She was the ship's expert on languages and first contact with new aliens. Her job was to figure out what new species were trying to say. "Play the signal again," Dr. Rena said, sitting down at another computer. The strange sounds filled the room. They were like music, but sad music. Urgent music. Dr. Rena closed her eyes and listened carefully. "These are definitely mathematical sequences," she said after several minutes. "Prime numbers, geometric patterns. This is how intelligent species try to prove they are intelligent to strangers." "But there's something else," Dr. Rena continued. "The way it repeats, the timing. This doesn't sound like a greeting. This sounds like..." "Like what?" Captain Minho asked. "Like a cry for help." The 3 humans looked at each other. A cry for help from an unknown species was a big deal. The Galactic Alliance had rules about this kind of thing. They were supposed to report it immediately and wait for instructions. "Can you figure out where exactly it's coming from?" Captain Minho asked Yuki. Yuki worked at her computer for several minutes. "Yes, sir. It's coming from a star system about 47 light-years from here. The signal is very weak, like whoever is sending it doesn't have much power left." Captain Minho thought about this. 47 light-years was far, but not too far for their ship. They could get there in less than a day if they traveled at maximum speed. "Sir," Dr. Rena said quietly, "that star system is in the restricted zone." The restricted zone was an area of space that the Galactic Alliance had marked as off-limits. Not because it was dangerous, but because it was unexplored. The Alliance had strict rules about meeting new alien species. It had to be done carefully, with lots of planning and the right people. "Keep working on translating that signal," Captain Minho told Dr. Rena. "I want to know what they're saying." For the next few hours, Dr. Rena and the ship's computers worked on the alien message. Slowly, words began to appear on the screen. At first they didn't make much sense, but gradually a picture began to form. "Help. Dying. Attack, please." The words appeared one by one as the computer figured out the alien language. Each new word made the situation clearer and more frightening. "Captain," Dr. Rena called out excitedly, "I'm getting more of the message now." They call themselves the Kalani. They're under attack by someone called the Drac Collective. More words appeared. "Cities burning. Millions dead. No weapons. Please help us." Captain Minho felt sick to his stomach. Somewhere out there, an entire planet of people was being destroyed, and they were calling out to anyone who would listen. "How long to reach their system at maximum speed?" he asked his navigation officer through the communication system. 18 hours, sir. 18 hours. In 18 hours, how many more of these Kalani people would die? "Sir," Dr. Rena said, I'm getting more of their message. The attackers, this Drac collective, they're not just attacking the colony. They're planning to attack other systems too. Which systems? I'm not sure yet, but some of the references look like they might be Alliance territory. Captain Minho walked to the big window that looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, people were dying. They had sent a message into the darkness, hoping someone would care enough to help them. The Alliance rules said he should report this and wait for orders. But that could take days or weeks. These people didn't have days or weeks. But his ship was not a warship. The Harmony's Edge was built for science, not fighting. They had basic weapons to protect themselves from pirates, but nothing that could fight a real military force. Captain, Yuki said urgently, the signal is getting weaker. I think their equipment is being damaged, or their cities are being destroyed, Dr. Rena added quietly. Just then, another signal came through the communication system. This one was much stronger and much more threatening. The computer translated it quickly. To any ship receiving this message, the Kalani system now belongs to the Drac Collective. Any vessel entering this system will be destroyed. This is your only warning. The communication room went silent. The Kalani were still calling for help, but now someone else was warning everyone to stay away. They're jamming the Kalani signal, Yuki said, watching her instruments. That's why it's getting weaker. They're trying to stop anyone from hearing the call for help. Captain Minho made his decision. Set course for the Kalani system, maximum speed. Sir, Dr. Rena said carefully, shouldn't we contact Alliance Command first? We'll send them a message on the way, but I'm not going to sit here and listen to an entire species get murdered while we wait for permission to help them. The Harmony's Edge turned toward the Kalani system and began accelerating to its maximum speed. Behind them, they sent a message to Alliance Command explaining the situation and asking for backup. But Captain Minho knew that backup would take too long. Whatever they were going to do, they would have to do it alone. Yuki, he said, keep monitoring that signal. As long as the Kalani are still broadcasting, some of them are still alive. Yes, sir. Dr. Rena, start preparing first contact protocols. If we're going to meet these people, we need to be ready. What about the Drac Collective? Dr. Rena asked. What do we do if they try to stop us? Captain Minho looked back at the stars racing by outside the window. We'll figure that out when we get there. Right now, all that matters is getting to the Kalani before it's too late. The ship raced through space toward the unknown system. In the communication room, the weak signal from the Kalani continued to play softly through the speakers. It was a sound of desperate hope, calling out across the vast emptiness of space, trusting that somewhere someone would care enough to answer. 17 hours to go. The Galactic Core was a nightmare of twisted space and deadly radiation. Admiral Seok-jin watched the tactical displays as his combined fleet emerged from hyperspace into the most dangerous region of the galaxy. Black holes warped space around them, while stellar remnants created energy storms that could destroy unshielded ships in seconds. Formation holding, reported his fleet coordinator. All 3,000 ships accounted for. No casualties from the jump. But the real shock was what waited for them. The Devourers hadn't just massed their forces. They had built something that defied comprehension. The command nexus stretched across an entire star system, a geometric construction of black metal and pulsing energy that dwarfed planets. Millions of Devourer ships orbited around it in perfect formation. Dear God, whispered Captain Yu Jung from her position commanding the assault squadron. How do we fight something that big? The same way we fight everything else, Admiral Seok-jin replied over the fleet communication channel. We hit it until it breaks. The battle began immediately. The Devourers had detected the fleet's arrival and were already moving to engage. Their formations were perfect, their coordination flawless. They moved like a single organism with millions of ships acting as one unified force. But the human-led alliance had learned from months of fighting. The fleet split into dozens of independent task forces, each one capable of acting without central command. While the Devourers tried to analyze and respond to the overall strategy, individual human commanders were already adapting to local conditions. Captain Yu Jung led the first assault wave directly toward the command nexus. Her strike force consisted of the fastest ships in the fleet, human destroyers, Veltarian scouts, and crystalline interceptors. Their mission was to punch through the enemy defenses and target the Nexus's critical systems. "All ships attack pattern Omega," she ordered. "No formation flying, no predetermined targets. Find something important and destroy it." The human doctrine of individual initiative worked perfectly against the collective devourer intelligence. While enemy ships tried to coordinate their response to predictable formation attacks, human vessels were already moving to new positions and engaging different targets. The space around the Nexus became a storm of energy weapons and exploding ships. The Devourers had overwhelming numbers, but they couldn't bring their full force to bear because their own formations kept getting in each other's way. The Alliance ships, fighting independently, could maneuver through the chaos and strike at weak points. Engineer Dong Wook was aboard the dreadnought Sejong when Admiral Seok Jin made the decision that would end the war. The battle had been raging for 6 hours, and while the Alliance was holding its own, they couldn't destroy the command nexus with conventional attacks. It was too large, too well defended, and its self-repair systems were working faster than the Alliance could damage it. "All engineering teams, this is Admiral Seok Jin," came the announcement over the ship's communication system. "We're implementing Protocol 7. Begin reactor overload procedures on all ships." Protocol 7 was humanity's final gambit, turning the entire fleet into weapons. Every ship would overload its power systems, creating explosions that could damage even the massive command nexus. It was a suicide mission, but it was the only way to generate enough destructive force. "Sir, Protocol 7 means we don't go home," Dong Wook said to his captain. "I know," Captain Park replied, "but if we don't stop them here, there won't be a home to go back to." Across the fleet, similar conversations were taking place. Alien crews who had never considered suicide attacks were following human commanders into certain death. The peaceful species that had spent millennia avoiding conflict were now volunteering to die for victory. Commander Hyo Jin was aboard the destroyer Cheonan when the final phase began. Her ship had taken heavy damage fighting through the outer defenses, but her engines still worked. She aimed her crippled vessel directly at the command nexus's central core. "All hands abandon ship," she ordered. "Transport to the evacuation vessels." "What about you, Commander?" her first officer asked. "Someone has to guide her in," Hyojin replied. "Make sure she hits exactly where she needs to hit." The Cheonan accelerated toward the Nexus at maximum speed, its overloaded reactor building toward critical mass. Devourer weapons tried to stop it, but the small destroyer was too fast and too close. Hyojin held her course until the last possible second, then activated the emergency transport just as her ship impacted the Nexus. The explosion was visible across the entire star system. The Cheonan's overloaded reactor, combined with the dozens of other ships following similar attack runs, created a cascade of destruction that tore through the command Nexus's defenses. But it wasn't enough. The Nexus was damaged, but still functional, still coordinating the Devourer collective across multiple galaxies. The Alliance fleet was reduced to scattered survivors, and their ammunition was nearly exhausted. That's when Admiral Seok Jin made his final decision. The flagship Soul's Honor was the largest ship in the fleet, equipped with the most powerful reactor and the heaviest armor. If any ship could deliver a killing blow to the Nexus, it would be her. "All surviving ships, this is Admiral Seok Jin. Continue evacuation procedures. Soul's Honor will complete the mission." "Sir," his communications officer protested, "the crew transport systems are damaged. We can't evacuate everyone in time." "I know," the Admiral replied. "Send a message to Earth. Tell them we stopped the Devourers. Tell them the galaxy is safe." The Yao Soul's Honor began its final approach to the command nexus. The ship's reactor had already been pushed beyond safe limits, and the overload was building toward an explosion that would dwarf anything seen in the battle so far. The Devourers recognized the threat and concentrated all their remaining firepower on the approaching dreadnought. Energy weapons that could destroy planets hammered the ship's armor. The hull began to buckle and atmosphere vented into space. But the Soul's honor continued forward. At the last moment, as the ship penetrated the Nexus's final defenses, something unexpected happened. The collective Devourer intelligence, faced with imminent destruction, did something it had never done in millions of years of existence. It tried to communicate. Why? The signal came directly to Admiral Seok Jin's command station. Why do you sacrifice everything? Your survival probability is 0, because some things are more important than survival, the Admiral replied. Because someone has to protect the weak. Because that's what living things do. The Soul's honor struck the command Nexus's central core and exploded with the force of a small star. The blast tore through the Nexus's structure, creating a chain reaction that destroyed the entire construct. More importantly, it severed the collective intelligence that had coordinated Devourer operations across 17 galaxies. Across space, millions of Devourer ships suddenly stopped functioning. Cut off from their central intelligence, they drifted, helplessly through space like empty shells. The ancient enemy that had consumed entire galaxies was finally defeated. The aftermath of the battle was both triumphant and tragic. The Devourers were finished, but the cost had been enormous. Over half the Alliance fleet had been destroyed, including most of the human ships. Thousands of brave crews had sacrificed their lives for victory. Admiral Yoon Suk, who had been commanding the reserve fleet, took charge of the liberation efforts. Across Federation space, worlds that had been occupied by Devourer forces were suddenly free. The machines that had been systematically consuming everything organic simply shut down. The galaxy is safe, she reported to Earth in her first transmission. After the battle, the Devourers are defeated, but the price was higher than anyone imagined. Captain Tae Kyung was among the survivors who returned to Federation space to help with reconstruction. The war had changed everything, not just the military balance of power, but the entire structure of galactic civilization. The Federation's peaceful approach to governance had been replaced by something new, something that combined alien wisdom with human pragmatism. We learned something important, he told the new Galactic Council during its first meeting. Peace isn't just the absence of war. Sometimes you have to fight to preserve the things that make peace possible. Diplomat Su Jin helped draft the New Galactic Charter, a document that would govern the alliance between hundreds of different species. The charter reflected the lessons learned during the war, the importance of individual initiative, the necessity of sometimes accepting casualties for strategic advantage, and the value of courage in the face of impossible odds. We're not the same species we were before the war, she explained to Earth's government. The aliens aren't either. We've all changed. We've all learned that sometimes the most peaceful civilizations need the most dangerous warriors to protect them. The first human colonies outside Earth's system were established within a year of the war's end. But these weren't the peaceful exploration outposts that humanity had originally planned. They were fortress worlds defended by ships and weapons that could hold off any future threat. The galaxy had been saved by its most dangerous species. The Deathworld warriors had proven that evolution on a hostile planet created exactly the kind of people the universe sometimes needed. The Kepler system had been a thriving Federation mining colony just 2 weeks ago. Now it was a graveyard of destroyed ships and harvested worlds. Admiral Dong Hyun watched the tactical displays as his fleet approached the system, seeing the aftermath of Devourer efficiency for the first time. 3 planets completely consumed, reported his intelligence officer. The mining stations have been stripped down to their base materials, but our sensors are detecting Devourer activity near the 4th planet. They're still here. Commander, Boram commanded the destroyer squadron that would make first contact with the enemy. Her 5 ships were the fastest in the human fleet, designed for hit-and-run attacks. As they dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system, she got her first look at the Devourers in action. My God, whispered her tactical officer. What are those things? The Devourer ships looked like geometric nightmares, angular constructions, of black metal covered in spinning mechanical parts. They moved with unnatural precision, their formation perfect and unchanging. 3 of them were orbiting the 4th planet, using some kind of energy beam to strip away its atmosphere and surface. All ships weapons free, Boram ordered. Attack pattern Delta, hit them fast and hard. The human destroyers accelerated to attack speed, their modified engines pushing them to velocities that would have been impossible with Federation technology. The Devourers detected them immediately and turned to engage, but their response was slow and predictable. The first exchange of fire was a revelation. The Devourer beam weapons were incredibly powerful, able to cut through ship armor like paper, but they were designed for precision work, not combat. The human ships, weaving and dodging at high speed, were difficult targets. In contrast, the human weapons were designed specifically for combat. Railgun projectiles slammed into Devourer hulls at relativistic speeds. Energy weapons designed for close-range combat burned through their mechanical systems. Most importantly, human tactics were completely unpredictable. Busan rammed the lead. Ship, Boram ordered. Mokpo, target their engines, all other ships converging attack. The destroyer Busan's captain, Kim, didn't hesitate. His ship accelerated directly toward the largest Devourer vessel, firing all weapons as it closed. At the last second, he activated his ship's emergency transport system, beaming his crew to the other destroyers just before impact. The collision was devastating. The Devourer ship, designed for precision operations, couldn't withstand the kinetic impact of a destroyer moving at combat speed. It broke apart in a cascade of explosions, taking a significant portion of the enemy fleet's processing power with it. Target destroyed, reported the Mokpo's weapons officer. The other Devourers they're just floating there, like they don't know what to do. The remaining enemy ships had stopped moving entirely. They hung in space like dead metal, their perfect formations broken. It took several minutes before they began to respond again, and when they did, their movements were clumsy and uncoordinated. They're linked, Boram realized. When we destroyed one ship, we disrupted their entire network. They had to re-establish their connections before they could function again. The remaining battle was almost anticlimactic. The two surviving Devourer ships, operating without their full network intelligence, were easy targets for the human destroyers. Within an hour, the Kepler system was clear of enemy forces. But the victory came at a cost. The Busan was gone, and 3 other destroyers had suffered significant damage. Captain Sun Young of the frigate Gangneung had sacrificed her ship to destroy a Devourer weapon platform, staying at her post until the last second to ensure her final torpedo found its target. Major Jae Hyun led the first human ground assault, when they discovered Devourer forces on the 4th planet's surface. His Marines were equipped with modified Federation power armor, but their tactics were purely human. The machines have established a processing center near the old mining complex, he reported to Admiral Dong Hyun. They're converting the extracted materials into new Devourer units. We need to destroy the facility before they can complete the process. The ground assault was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Federation forces had always avoided close combat, preferring to bombard enemy positions from orbit. But orbital bombardment wouldn't work against the Devourer facility. It was too well protected, and destroying it from space would eliminate valuable intelligence. Instead, Jae Hyun's Marines used drop pods to land directly on top of the enemy position. The Devourers, designed to process materials and construct new units, were not prepared for infantry assault. They're machines, but they're not soldiers, Sergeant Lee reported during the battle. They know how to cut metal and manipulate energy, but they don't understand tactics. They just stand there and try to process us like we're raw materials. The human Marines moved through the facility like a storm of violence. Their weapons, designed for ship-to-ship combat, were devastatingly effective against the Devourer processing units. More importantly, the humans fought as individuals, making decisions and adapting to conditions faster than the machine collective could respond. Medic Harin treated the first human casualties of the Galactic War. The Devourer weapons caused injuries unlike anything in human experience. Energy burns that damaged tissue at the molecular level, metal fragments that embedded themselves in bone and continued to vibrate at destructive frequencies. Their weapons are designed to break down matter for processing, she explained to Admiral Dong Hyun. They're not trying to kill us in any traditional sense. They're trying to convert us into raw materials. Despite the exotic nature of Devourer weapons, human medical training proved effective. The same toughness that had helped humanity survive Earth's hostile environment allowed them to recover from injuries that would be fatal to most Federation species. The intelligence gathered from the processing facility was invaluable. Commander Changmin, the fleet's strategic analyst, spent days studying the captured Devourer technology. "They're not just machines," he reported. "They're a form of artificial life, but one that operates on principles completely different from organic intelligence. They think collectively, process information systematically, and make decisions based on efficiency rather than creativity." "What does that mean for our tactics?" Admiral Dong Hyun asked. "It means they'll have trouble adapting to human unpredictability. They can analyze our technology, but they can't understand why we make irrational decisions." When Captain Kim rammed his ship into their vessel, their entire network had to stop and recalculate. They literally couldn't process the concept of deliberate self-sacrifice for tactical advantage. The victory at Kepler sent shockwaves through both the Federation and the Devourer collective. For the Federation, it was proof that the machines could be defeated. Human tactics applied to Federation technology had achieved something their own forces hadn't managed in months of fighting. For the Devourers, it was their first encounter with truly alien intelligence. They had consumed 17 galaxies by overwhelming organic species with superior technology and coordination. But humans didn't fight like other organic species. They were unpredictable, aggressive, and willing to accept casualties that other species would consider unacceptable. "The enemy is adapting," warned Commander Changmin in his final report. "They're analyzing our tactics and developing countermeasures. The next engagement won't be as easy as Kepler." "Good," replied Admiral Dong Hyun. "Easy victories don't teach you anything. If they're adapting to our tactics, we'll just have to develop new ones." News of the victory reached Earth within days, transmitted through the quantum communication network the Federation had provided. The response was immediate. Production quotas were increased, more fleets were assembled, and volunteers lined up to join the war effort. But the real impact was on Federation space. For the first time since the Devourers had awakened, refugee fleets had reason to hope. The Deathworld warriors had proven that the ancient machines could be defeated. The question now was whether humanity could sustain their success. The Devourers had consumed countless civilizations over millions of years. They had vast resources, superior technology, and endless patience. But they had never faced an enemy that improved through conflict, that became more dangerous the harder they were pressed. The first blood had been drawn and both sides had learned valuable lessons. For the Devourers, they had discovered that organic intelligence could be more dangerous than they had calculated. For humanity, they had learned that their Deathworld evolution gave them advantages even they hadn't fully understood. The war was just beginning, but the galaxy's most dangerous species had announced their arrival in the most human way possible, with violence, courage, and an absolute refusal to accept defeat. Admiral Minho had seen many military mobilizations during his career, but nothing compared to what was happening across Earth. Every nation had put aside their differences to build the largest war fleet in human history. Shipyards that had been building exploration vessels were now producing warships. Factories that made civilian goods were converted to produce weapons and armor. The scale was overwhelming. In just 3 months, Earth's industrial capacity had tripled. The alien technology the Federation had provided was being integrated with human engineering at an incredible pace. Ships that would have taken years to design were rolling off production lines in weeks. "The Beijing yards finished another dreadnought yesterday," reported his aide, Commander Yu Jin. "That makes 15 this month. The Mumbai facility completed their first batch of fighters, and the Lagos station is ahead of schedule on the support vessels." Minho studied the production reports with satisfaction. The Federation had provided the blueprints for faster-than-light engines, energy shields, and beam weapons. But human engineers had made improvements the aliens never considered. The ships, being built on Earth, were tougher, more heavily armed, and more aggressive than anything in the Federation fleet. "What about crew training?" Minho asked. "Colonel Seung reports that the 1st Marine battalions are ready for deployment. Captain Yejin's crew has finished certification on the new systems. were ahead of schedule across the board. The training programs were as intense as the construction efforts. Earth's military had to learn not just alien technology, but alien warfare. The Federation ships used energy weapons that could punch through armor from incredible distances. Their shields could absorb tremendous amounts of damage. Their engines could accelerate ships to speeds that would turn human bodies to paste without proper protection. But humans brought their own advantages to the partnership. Captain Yejin had been one of the first to volunteer for the new Dreadnought program. Her ship, the Docto, was a perfect example of human military thinking applied to alien technology. The Federation designed their dreadnoughts as mobile command centers, she explained to her senior officers. They're meant to coordinate fleet actions from a safe distance, but we've modified the Docto for close combat. Heavier armor, more weapons and engines designed for aggressive maneuvering. Her weapons officer, Lieutenant Han, pulled up the ship's specifications. We've got twice the firepower of a standard Federation dreadnought, and our armor can absorb 50% more damage. But the real difference is in our tactics. The Federation ships were designed to fight in formation, with each vessel supporting the others in carefully coordinated attacks. Human ships were built to fight independently, able to break formation and engage targets of opportunity. This flexibility made them unpredictable and dangerous. Colonel Seung was developing similar innovations for ground combat. The Federation had provided advanced power armor that could protect soldiers from energy weapons and allow them to operate in hostile environments. But they had never considered using that armor for close combat. The aliens think of ground combat as a support role, Seung explained to his Marine trainees. They use their troops to secure locations after their ships have eliminated all threats. But sometimes you have to take the fight directly to the enemy. The human Marines were training for boarding actions, using small ships to get close to enemy vessels, then cutting through their hulls to fight inside them. It was incredibly dangerous, but it was also something the Devourers wouldn't expect. The machines were designed to fight ship-to-ship battles, not hand-to-hand combat in narrow corridors. Intelligence Officer Ji-Wan had been studying captured Devourer technology, trying to understand how the machines operated. What she found was both encouraging and terrifying. They're not individual creatures, she reported to Admiral Minho. Each Devourer unit is part of a collective intelligence. They share information instantly and coordinate their actions perfectly, but that's also their weakness. How so? The Admiral asked. They can't understand individual initiative. When they encounter unexpected behavior, they have to send data back to their central processors for analysis. That creates a delay, a moment when they're vulnerable. Human tactics are perfect for exploiting that weakness. The Federation's archives contained records of 17 galaxies that the Devourers had consumed over millions of years. Each time, the pattern was the same. The machines would awaken, consume everything in their path, then return to dormancy. Once all organic life was eliminated, they were incredibly efficient, but they had never faced anything like human military doctrine. Admiral Dong Hyun was preparing to lead the first human fleet into Federation space. 50 of Earth's newest warships, crewed by volunteers who understood they might never return home. The fleet included every type of vessel humans had designed: dreadnoughts for heavy combat, destroyers for fast attacks, frigates for reconnaissance, and support ships to keep the fleet operational. Remember, Admiral Minho told Dong Hyun before departure, you're not just representing Earth, you're representing a completely different approach to warfare. The Federation has been fighting defensively for months, trying to minimize casualties and preserve their civilizations. Show them what happens when you fight to win. The fleet's departure was broadcast across Earth. Millions watched as humanity's warriors headed out to fight for the survival of galactic civilization. It was both inspiring and sobering. These ships carried Earth's best and bravest, heading into a war against an enemy that had already destroyed countless worlds. Nam Ju, a war correspondent assigned to document the fleet's activities, interviewed crew members before departure. The responses were surprisingly similar across different ships and ranks. We know the odds, said Petty Officer Kim from the destroyer Olsen, but someone has to fight and we're the best humanity has to offer. The aliens say we're from a death world, added Lieutenant Park from the dreadnought Sejong. Maybe that's true. Maybe growing up on a dangerous planet made us different. But if being dangerous is what it takes to stop these machines, then I'm proud to be dangerous. Engineer Hai Jin had spent weeks integrating human weapons with alien ships. The results were impressive but untested. We've created weapons that Federation scientists said were impossible, she reported. Projectile weapons that can punch through energy shields, missiles that can track targets through hyperspace jumps, close-range energy weapons designed for ship-to-ship combat. Strategist Wu Jin had developed new battle doctrines that combined human aggression with Federation technology. The key is speed and unpredictability, he explained to the fleet commanders. Don't give the Devourers time to analyze your actions. Hit hard, move fast, and always keep them guessing. The Federation representatives who had remained on Earth to coordinate the alliance watched the fleet depart with mixed emotions. They were grateful for human assistance, but they were also worried about what they had unleashed. Humanity's approach to warfare was unlike anything in their experience. Your species frightens us, admitted Ambassador Coltin during a meeting with Admiral Minho. You approach war with an enthusiasm that we find disturbing. You seem to enjoy the challenge of combat. We don't enjoy war, Minho replied, but we understand it. We know that sometimes peace can only be preserved through violence. Sometimes, you have to break things to fix them. As Earth's war fleet disappeared into hyperspace, the planet's remaining forces continued their preparations. This was just the first wave. If the initial engagement was successful, more fleets would follow. If it failed, Earth would need every ship it could build to defend the home system. The Deathworld had awakened. After centuries of gradual expansion into space, humanity was finally showing the galaxy what they were truly capable of. The peaceful exploration era was over. The age of human warriors had begun. Dr. Dayun had spent her entire career studying alien life, but she had never expected to study aliens who had been watching Earth for centuries. The Federation's biological files about humanity filled terabytes of data, and every page made her more amazed and disturbed. Look at this, she said to her research team in the Seoul National University lab. They've been monitoring human evolution for over 50,000 years. They have detailed records of every major evolutionary change in our species. The alien scientists had been fascinated by humanity's development. Most species in the galaxy evolved on worlds where the greatest dangers were mild weather changes or competition for food. Earth was different. Earth tried to kill everything that lived on it. The files described how early humans survived ice ages that would have frozen most alien species to death. They documented human ancestors running down prey animals over long distances, something most galactic species would die from attempting. The aliens were amazed that humans could heal from injuries that would be fatal to others, fight off diseases that would wipe out entire alien populations, and adapt to environments that most species couldn't even visit. They don't understand our immune systems, Dayun explained to Admiral Tejo during her briefing. Most galactic species live in sterile environments. Their bodies never had to develop strong defenses against disease. A common human cold could kill some of their species. What about our physical capabilities, the Admiral asked. We're stronger, faster, and tougher than almost every known species. But that's not what really scares them. Dayun pulled up another file. It's our minds, the way we think. The Federation psychologists had studied human behavior for decades, trying to understand how Deathworld evolution had shaped human thinking. They found patterns that worried them. Humans could make decisions quickly under pressure. They could work independently without constant guidance. Most importantly, they could accept necessary losses to achieve victory. They can't comprehend our military thinking, Dayun continued. When they plan a battle, they try to minimize all casualties, including enemy casualties. They see war as a problem to be solved with the least possible harm to anyone. But humans understand that sometimes you have to destroy your enemy completely to protect what you value. Lieutenant Jun was studying these same files as his ship, the destroyer Incheon, traveled toward Federation space. As the leader of humanity's first diplomatic mission, he needed to understand not just what humans could offer their new allies, but what those allies expected from them. The journey took 2 weeks using the new faster-than-light engines the Federation had provided. The technology was incredible. Engines that could fold space itself, allowing ships to travel vast distances in days instead of years. But June noticed that the alien designs were built for comfort and efficiency, not for combat. Human engineers were already working on modifications. When the Incheon arrived at Federation space, June saw the true extent of the crisis. Refugee fleets filled the star system, thousands of ships carrying billions of beings from worlds that no longer existed. The aliens came in dozens of different shapes and sizes. Some looked like giant insects, others like walking plants, still others like living crystals, but they all shared the same look of fear and desperation. The Federation Council met on a massive space station that had been designed as a diplomatic center. Now it served as a command post for a losing war. June was escorted through corridors filled with alien beings who stopped and stared at him. Word had spread that the Deathworld warriors had finally arrived. The council chamber was enormous, with representatives from over 100 different species. June had studied the alien profiles, but seeing them in person was overwhelming. These beings had built civilizations that spanned star systems, created technologies that seemed like magic, and achieved knowledge that humans could barely understand, and they were all looking to him for salvation. "Welcome, human warrior," said Council Leader Velka, a tall being that looked like a cross between a tree and a spider. "We have waited for your species to join galactic society for many decades. We only wish it could have been under better circumstances." Jun stood before the assembled aliens and felt the weight of their expectations. "My government has sent me to learn more about your situation and determine how humanity can help." "Help?" another council member said. This one looked like a floating jellyfish with dozens of eyes. "We do not need your help. We need you to take command. We need you to save us." The next few hours were a whirlwind of briefings and tactical presentations. The Devourers had awakened 6 months ago from some kind of long dormancy. No one knew why they had been sleeping or what had caused them to activate. They simply began consuming everything in their path. The machines were not like any enemy the Yo Federation had ever faced. They didn't want territory or resources in the traditional sense. They consumed matter itself, breaking down planets and stars to create more of themselves. They had no interest in negotiation or surrender. They simply ate everything. "Our fleets engage them when we must," explained Admiral Zixmore, a being that looked like a walking collection of crystals. "But our weapons barely damage them, and their weapons destroy our ships easily. We have lost over 300 vessels in the past month." June studied the battle reports with growing understanding. The Federation ships attacked from long range, trying to disable Devourer vessels with precision weapons. When that failed, they retreated rather than risk their crews. It was exactly the kind of careful, measured response that would lose this war. "You need to change your tactics," June said. "You're fighting like you want to minimize casualties. But the Devourers don't care about casualties. They'll accept any losses to achieve their goals." "But sacrificing our people unnecessarily is barbaric," Velka protested. "There must be a way to win without such brutal methods." "There isn't," June replied. "Sometimes the only way to stop a predator is to hurt it more than it can hurt you. Sometimes good people have to do terrible things to protect what they love." The aliens looked uncomfortable, but they had seen the results of their current approach. Entire star systems were disappearing while they debated ethics. "What do you propose?" Admiral Zixmore asked. "Let humanity take operational control of your combined fleets. Give us access to your best technology and your manufacturing capabilities. We'll build ships designed for war, not exploration. We'll train your crews in human tactics, and we'll take the fight directly to the Devourers." The council chamber fell silent. These peaceful beings were being asked to hand over command of their forces to a species they barely knew, a species they considered barely civilized. "How do we know you won't simply take our technology and abandon us?" one council member asked. June had expected this question. "Because the Devourers won't stop with your worlds. If they consume the Federation, they'll come for Earth next. This isn't just your war anymore, it's a war for the survival of all organic life in the galaxy." The vote was close, but it passed. The Galactic Federation formally requested that humanity take command of their combined military forces. They offered unrestricted access to their technology and manufacturing capabilities. In return, they asked for something that no Federation species had ever needed to ask for. They asked for warriors who understood that sometimes the only way to preserve life was to be willing to take it. As June prepared to return to Earth with FIS, the Federation's formal request, he wondered if humanity was ready for what was coming. They were about to transform from a single-world species into the military leaders of a galactic civilization. The peaceful exploration of space that humans had dreamed of was over before it had really begun. The Deathworld had produced exactly what the galaxy needed, a species that understood war not as a failure of diplomacy, but as a sometimes necessary tool of survival. The question now was whether that would be enough to stop an enemy that had already consumed entire galaxies. Captain Hyon stared at the strange signals dancing across his screen. He had been watching the stars from Sol's Pride space station for 3 years, but he had never seen anything like this. The patterns were too organized to be natural noise, too complex to be random. "Yoon, come look at this," he called to his communications officer. Yoon floated over in the zero gravity, her dark hair tied back in the regulation style. She studied the data for several minutes, her fingers moving quickly over the control panel. "Sir, this is definitely artificial. It's coming from outside our solar system, about 40 light-years away. The pattern repeats every few minutes, like someone is broadcasting the same message over and over." Hyon felt his heart speed up. First contact. This was what every deep space monitor had dreamed of and feared. "Can you decode it?" "I'm working on it. The signal uses mathematical concepts. That should be universal. Give me a few hours." Those few hours felt like days. Hyon sent word to Earth Command, but he knew it would take time for the message to reach them and for orders to come back. For now, Sol's Pride was humanity's first line of contact with whatever was out there. When Yoon finally cracked the code, her face went pale. "Captain, you need to hear this." The translated message was simple and terrifying. "Help us. We are dying. The Devourers have awakened. Entire systems are gone. We know about your species. You are from a death world. You are warriors. Please help. Galactic Federation Beacon 7742. "Death world?" Hyon asked. "What does that mean?" "There's more data attached, sir. Technical specifications, star charts, and..." Yoon paused, reading the information. "Captain, they have detailed files about Earth. About us. They've been watching us for a long time." The data painted a picture that shocked both officers. According to the aliens, most worlds in the galaxy were peaceful places where life evolved slowly and safely. The creatures that lived on these worlds were gentle, intelligent, but physically weak. Earth was different. Earth was classified as a death world, a planet so dangerous that only the strongest, most aggressive species could survive there. The files described Earth's history with clinical precision. The ice ages that nearly wiped out early humans, the predators that hunted human ancestors, the diseases that killed millions, the natural disasters that forced humans to become adaptable and tough. According to the aliens, this made humans uniquely qualified as warriors. "They think we're the most dangerous species in the galaxy," Yoon whispered. "Not because we're evil, but because we had to become dangerous to survive." The message continued with more urgent pleas. Something called the Devourers had awakened from a long sleep. These machines consumed entire planets, turning all matter into more of themselves. They had already destroyed dozens of star systems, and the peaceful Federation species had no way to stop them. "They want us to save them," Hyon said. "But we've barely figured out how to travel between stars ourselves. Our fastest ships take months to reach the nearest star." The alien message included technical data, blueprints for faster engines, better weapons, and stronger shields. It was as if they were offering humanity their entire technological knowledge in exchange for military help. 3 days later, Admiral Tae-ho arrived at Sol's Pride with a small fleet of Earth's newest warships. The admiral was a stern man with gray hair and sharp eyes. He had fought in Earth's last major wars and understood the cost of conflict better than most. "Captain Hyon, I need to see everything." the Admiral said as soon as he boarded the station. They spent hours going through the alien data. The more they learned, the more incredible it became. The Galactic Federation included over 200 different species, spread across thousands of worlds. They had technologies that could heal any injury, create energy from nothing, and travel between stars in days instead of months. But they had never learned to fight. Their worlds were too safe, their societies too peaceful. When conflicts arose, they solved them through discussion and compromise. The idea of total war was foreign to them. These devourers, Admiral Tejo said, studying the tactical reports, they're not just attacking random targets. They're systematically destroying the Federation's industrial worlds first, then their population centers. It's a classic campaign of annihilation. General Sora, who had arrived with the Admiral's fleet, nodded grimly. The Federation's response has been purely defensive. They're trying to evacuate civilians and protect their remaining worlds. But you can't win a war by only defending. Fleet Commander Kiwu pulled up holographic displays of the alien ships. Their technology is impressive, but their tactics are terrible. They group their ships together like they're afraid to fight alone. Their weapons are designed to disable, not destroy. It's like they've never had to kill anything in their lives. Because they haven't, Admiral Tejo said quietly. Look at their history. The Federation has been at peace for over 1,000 years. The last time any of their species fought a real war, humans were still living in caves. The debate that followed was intense. Earth's military leaders understood that helping the Federation meant committing humanity to a war against an enemy they didn't fully understand. The Devourers had already consumed civilizations far more advanced than Earth. What chance did humans have? But the alternative was worse. If the Federation fell, the Devourers would eventually reach Earth. Humanity could try to hide, but the aliens had already found them. Better to fight alongside allies than face the machines alone. There's something else, Admiral Tejo said, calling up another file. The Federation's analysis of human military doctrine. They've been studying our wars, our tactics, our weapons. Do you know what conclusion they reached? The others waited. They think we're insane. The way we fight, the risks we take, our willingness to sacrifice everything for victory. They can't understand it, but they've realized it might be the only thing that can stop the Devourers. The decision was made that day. Admiral Tejo sent a message back to Earth, recommending that humanity accept the Federation's plea for help. The response came back. Within hours, Earth's nations were already mobilizing their fleets. As Sol's Pride prepared to return to Earth, Hyan stood in the observation deck, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, entire civilizations were dying while ancient machines consumed world after world. Soon, human ships would be traveling to those distant stars, carrying Earth's warriors to fight an enemy that had never faced anything like them. Yoon joined him at the window. Are we really going to do this? Fight a war for people we've never met? Yes, Hyun said. Because if we don't, there might not be anyone left to meet. The message had been received. The Deathworld warriors were coming. For the first time in months, the Galactic Federation had reason to hope.